asking me to leave the meeting. No. Okay. So we initially started with conversations with the improvement district. So you guys have a lake improvement district on the lake, and they are very active. And they're very motivated. And they came to us and they said, hey, what can we do to partner and protect this lake? You know, what are the things that we can do? The landowners, you guys on the lake, again, very motivated. And especially with these grants, that's exactly what we need, because it's all voluntary work. You know, there's nothing that says, hey, you have to do this, you're required to do this. Everybody says, hey, I'm willing to help out in some way. So we talked with the improvement district and we said, okay, let's do a study. Let's understand what we have going on. So we do what is called a sub-watershed assessment. And that just includes a bunch of desktop analysis, going out, kind of studying the landscape, figuring out, you know, what is the lake in terms of the nutrient in the lake, how much phosphorus, how much nutrient, how much like the chlorophyll A, all that stuff, and where on the landscape could we potentially put some of these projects that are going to help protect the lake. So we did that study, and then once we completed that, we said, all right, we have something here, and we applied for a grant. And like I said before, when we applied for the grant, we geared it towards protection and not restoration, which sometimes is a little different, especially with obtaining clean water fund money. They want to see a lake that needs to get back to being good, and not so much, all right, we just want to protect it. But we got the funding, $93,000, and all that funding is being put towards these projects that we're about to talk about. Okay, so where are we now? We are looking for volunteers. Like I said before, all these projects are done by landowners who are saying, I'm willing to help you guys out. I'm willing to keep my lake clean. You know, the lake is an investment. Your property is an investment. You know, I hear all the time, you know, I want to pass this down to my kids and then to my grandkids. And so I want to do something that when they go out, it was just as nice as when I had it when I was a kid. And so we're looking for landowners to participate. We're looking for what projects are going to work on their property. Again, we have, or $93,000. Now we have $32,000 for the shoreline restorations. Other funding went to projects that have already been completed. You can see that picture. That's the beach area rain garden that we did last year, which is awesome. If you see that little inlet, Lydia will tell you, probably once a month we'll go in there and we'll lift that up, and it's full of sediment. And we just dig it out and take it away, where every year before then, all of that would wash directly into the lake. So a little bit about the grant. We pay 75% of all project costs. So that's just an incentive for the landowner who's willing to do stuff. So before I go through the types of projects that we install, or the landowners install, you guys are the ones that do it. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits. So these projects protect water quality. So how do they protect water quality? The biggest thing is filtering the runoff that's coming from the landscape, especially around lakes that are developed so much like yours. There's a ton of impervious surface. So when I say impervious surface, I mean driveways, rooftops, roads, areas where in the past, when rain would fall, it would just soak into the ground. Well, now it's just moved to another part. It's just moved down the river and into Spec Lake. So these projects help by filtering that runoff. They help by retaining it on the land. So like that rain garden, for example, they hold it. Instead of it all going to the water, the rain gardens hold the water and filter it instead of pushing it into the lake. We increase fish and wildlife habitat. So the plants that we use, a variety of different plants, pollinators, you know, they invite snakes and spiders, you know, even though some people don't like that. No, I mean, no, they don't do that. But they improve your wildlife habitat. They reduce erosion, and I'll show you in the next slide. So when we do these buffers, these restorations using plants, it's just unreal, these root structures that these plants have. And they hold that soil in place. So when it's super wavy, or like during a storm, or with big boats with motors, they hold that soil. And I'll show you the next picture on kind of example of that. And then aesthetics too. You know, they're beautiful, and it really makes your property look super nice. So, I mean, if you happen to sell in your property, and instead of having a shoreline with a bunch of bare dirt and jagged and eroding, you have these super nice shoreline buffers that people enjoy. So yeah, there's that in the top left, maybe top right for people on the Zoom. There's a, you can see where that guy's standing. That's a shoreline buffer, and his neighbor has no buffer. So those plants are doing their job to where that guy's standing. And shoreline property is expensive. So if it was me, I'd probably want to keep as much as I could, especially if it's floating in the lake. So the shoreline restorations are probably the most popular projects that we use. And basically what they are, they're a bioengineering type of project, meaning, you know, we don't use plastic or riprap or rock. We try to use all natural material. So like just a basic buffer planting. We also use what they're called core logs. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like wood chips or other organic material that's wrapped in like a another material that makes like a log, and then you stick it across the shoreline where it's eroding, and it protects against wave and other well, waves, basically just waves. And so there's a few things that we look for when we do shoreline buffers. And with the grant, it's what we kind of expect from landowners, is that they're willing to give up, you know, maybe restore as much property as possible. A lot of times we say about 50% of your shoreline should be put into this buffer, or have that planting be about 50% of your shoreline. And that's just to maximize that pollutant reduction and make sure that those tax dollars that we're using are going the farthest. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, go. I don't know if I can hear him. Can you hear him?
Do you have a question, Ken?
Oh, okay. Well, Ken, you can type it into the chat box and I can answer it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
So yeah, shoreline restorations are probably the most popular project that we implement on the lakes. Another, oh, here, example. So this was on Blue Lake, and you can see how the shoreline is clearly eroding. On top there, they're losing a bunch of sediment. She lives at the bottom of a hill, so she gets a lot of that runoff that comes down. If you see the table here, this is kind of what I do. I'll come out and I'll write down the current conditions of the lake. So like in this example, there's like 1.5 feet of vertical bank that's just bare. There's exposed soil, undercutting, and that undercutting is a lot. Spectacle Lake has a lot of undercutting. So like under the bank, it's cavernous underneath that bank there. Reed canary, which is aquatic invasive species. There's a beach area, and then I wrote down there the runoff that's coming off the hill. And then on the other side of that table, I wrote down, you know, what would we do to remedy those issues? So install the shrub and native plant plugs. So again, using those native plants as a buffer to capture runoff and hold the soil. same thing with the exposed soil. Undercutting, we used what were called willow wattles, or they're willow bundles. You just get sticks, like sandbar willow sticks are about 8 feet long, about 1 inch in diameter, and you just put them together and you tie a rope around them, and you create like a log, that's about 8 to 10 feet long, and then you stake that into the shoreline. I'll show you a picture instead of me rambling on. You'll see a picture in a minute. We also planted a pollinator seed mix, and then the native buffer, like I said, helps with capturing that runoff. Here's the end product. This was done this year, so those plants will grow up, obviously. But those willow staking are at the bottom, and that helps with the wave action and holding that bank in place. So yes, shoreline restoration pictures and examples. So another type of project that is popular are rain gardens. So these are retention basins, and they retain water that's coming off the land. If you see it, that bigger rain garden picture there with the bags in front of it, that is the project at Spectacle Beach that we installed this year. The other one is a homeowner, and the other one is a township. That one's over on Blue Lake. So here's the example of, and I think Spec Lake has some of these, like a few of these situations around the lake where they have an access that goes like directly into the lake. So, places where people had their own boat access. And in this situation, I wrote down the current conditions. So an impervious or a driveway that ends right near the lake. So this driveway comes off the road just like a normal driveway, but instead of it going to like a garage, it just stops. And then you have the lake. So what happens is, when you get rain and rain basically coming down the road and carrying sediment and carrying pollutants, just right into the lake. And that's something we want to stop. So worked with the landowner, and we were able to put this right at the bottom of it. So now when the rain comes down the hill, it just gets captured with the small little basins. And these are really popular. We do a lot of these on the lake, around the lakes. And they look really nice. Here's a few other examples. A lot of Blue Lakes, another one of the Spec Lake one. So the next example I put up here, and I haven't done a lot of these projects, but I know on Spec Lake, it's probably gonna be one that we do a lot. So it's like shoreline and hillside stabilization. So when you have steep hillsides with trees, a lot of trees on them, you get that shading, so you don't get a lot of vegetation underneath there. And then with the upland runoff, you get a lot of that stuff coming over the hillside, carrying that sediment and washing into the lake. So how we remedy that, this next picture. So we try to stop the water as far up on top of the hill as possible. So it's hard just to stop halfway down. It's like what? An insane slope. So there's nothing really in terms of trapping the water that can be done on the hillside. But so we try to capture it up on top the best we can. So we create these, it's almost like a terrace type thing. So as the water comes down, it hits a terrace, slows down. And hits another terrace, slows down, and it just really slows down that washing of the hillside. And then we also plant a ton of native plants, shaded plants, or plants that do well in the shade, to create that cover and cover some of that bare soil. So I see that this is probably going to be a popular one on the lake. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so since we kind of went through the, hold on, there's a chat. Hello. Oh, that's Lydia. Says, hello, I'm Lydia. Oh, perfect. Well, no question. So getting started. So how do we start the process? How do we figure out, our next steps? Like I said at the beginning, what I want everyone here to do is be able to go out on their property, walk around and say, oh, I was at that meeting and, rain garden would work perfect here, I think, or, that shoreline buffer, awesome, or the terrace thing. And then once you or you look and be like, oh, I don't need any of that. But once you do, and if you think that there's a opportunity, then you just give me a call. So you call me, whenever. I'm sure you guys know your property well enough where you can call me and just know you don't have to wait till spring, you know what's going on. And we'll set up a site visit and I'll come out and I'll just walk with you guys and we'll brainstorm ideas. And then I'll go back to the office and kind of I'll put all that information in the computer, and we have these different computer tools that'll spit out pretty cool, like the effectiveness of projects. So like how much nutrient is it stopping from going into the lake? Some might say, this rain garden is going to prevent a half a pound of phosphorus from reaching the lake. And to give you kind of an idea, 1 pound of phosphorus that goes into the lake can potentially create 500 pounds of algae. So phosphorus is our enemy a little bit. We don't. So these programs will tell us how effective these projects are, and then we can put a cost to it. And that's what, so when I say justification there, project justification, these projects are ranked based on cost benefit of removing phosphorus. So how much is it going to cost to remove the amount of phosphorus on your property? And I rank these projects against other projects on the lake. And the reason I do that is because it's important that we're using these tax dollars correctly. I want to make sure that when I do these projects, they're going to work and that they're going to work well. They're doing the job that we want them to do. Basically just spending the money right. So come back to the office after all these site visits that I'll go out with people around the lake, and I'll kind of rank the projects. And then whoever, until that money's gone, I'll go out and say, okay, let's, what do we want to do? Let's do something. Let's do that rain garden that I modeled and said it was a good project. We'll do a design, and the design process, man, it's usually pretty darn simple. Sometimes we have to get an engineer involved, but a lot of the work, or a lot of the planning and design, is done with you guys and me, because these are your projects. And so like we talk about what kind of flowers we put in there and what kind of grasses, what colors do you like? That's a big thing where people are like, oh, don't put yellow in there. I hate yellow. So like we just have a big inventory of different plants, and we design the project so it looks nice for you guys. Because you guys have to get up and drink coffee on the deck and look at it every day. Boo boo, I don't feel that bad, but that's what you have to do. So we work with you. So once we do the project design and we have everything in place, we do a contract. Hold on. I'm missing this. Sorry. Uh-oh. I think I'm froze. I knew this froze. I'm freezing up here, people. Here we go. Oh no. Project selection. I didn't do any of this. I'm sorry. I talked about it without pressing it. Project selection, like I just said, I go back to the office, look and see what projects are good, cost effectiveness. We do the project design. Here's an example of project designs. And we talk to you guys about the plant list that I rambled on, just totally forgot about my presentation. I don't even know why I brought it with me. My gosh, I don't know. Yeah. No, it doesn't. The consultation does not cost anything. What we do before the design usually is have you guys sign, it's just, it's a letter of intent. And it's basically saying, you know, that you guys are very, like, you're invested, like you want to do this, because the design stuff does take time. You know, and we've had just more of an insurance, you know, where people are like, yes, I definitely want to do this. So, and things happen, man, COVID, right?
Yeah.
How many people are like, oh, dude, like, I can't afford this right now. Totally understand. But yeah, we usually just have you guys sign something that says that you are 99% sure it's going to happen. And we do that. So one of the things that's important are the maintenance responsibilities of these projects. So how I explain it to people is they're like your landscaping project. So what, every 2 years you go out and redo the mulch, or you trim back some of the shrubs, or, you know, you maintain it so that it works for the following year and years to come. And that's the same thing with these projects. It's the landowner responsibility.
Library will be closing in 30 minutes at 8 p.m. Again, we'll be closing at 8 p.m. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful evening.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. So the maintenance part is like, that's like one of the biggest responsibilities of the landowner. Because if you, well, the contract, if you don't maintain it and you let it go, like just kaput, then it's kind of like on you guys, and then you have to, like, I don't know, it's just a pain in the butt. I've never had it happen. People who do these projects are always invested and they like doing it. And the maintenance is not that difficult, especially with the native plants that we use. They, after like 2 years, the 2 years is the most, like, where you have to do some weeding and make sure watering enough. But these native plants, they just do their own thing after like 3 years. If you think of it like a native prairie, like you drive around and go to a wildlife management area that the DNR have, and there's, you know, all these wildflowers, and there's no one out there like weeding and watering. You know, they do their own thing. So, but the maintenance part is important, and I stress that before people sign the contract, saying that. So the contract is, it's a 10-year contract, saying that I'm gonna make sure that this project is successful and working for the next 10 years. And again, that's the tax dollars. You know, we want to make sure that people's money is being put to good use. And when we put in money and we put in projects, you know, we want to make sure that it's going to be good for the next 10 years. And these things last longer than 10 years. It's just the contract is just 10 years. So some of the things about the contract, the maintenance part is probably the most important. Like, hey, I'm going to maintain this. I'm going to keep it good. If I don't do that, then, you know, we have issues. But again, I never like had that happen. If a giant monsoon washes everything away, you know, it's not your fault. You know, tornado, whatever, you know, it's not your fault that it washed into the lake or whatever happened. So yeah, then a little, let's see, what else am I missing about the contract? We'll go through that when we get to that point. It's pretty straightforward. And yeah, well, I wanted to, so here's the contact information, but I wanted to show you guys first. These are those native plants that we use. And this is why they do so well, because you have, you know, you see above the ground, your 2 foot, a big blue stem, or, you know, whatever. But below that, you have like literally double the root mass, and they're huge and they hold on. I mean, it's just so, it's so cool to see how well they work. And if you see natural shorelines that have never been disturbed, or how, you know, how well they are stable and not eroding, it's because these plants, and that's why we use them. Oh yeah, here's that other picture that I wanted to show you. So another thing, I'm just trying to think here, and feel free to answer questions, because that is basically the whole presentation. Usually you're looking at costs between, probably $7,000 to $10,000 for a project, depending on what it is. Rain gardens are a little more expensive just because the dirt work. So we hire a contractor come in and then they have to bring equipment. That's a little more expensive.
That's our cost or total for the job?
A total for the project, yep. And so 25% of that would be out of pocket. Yep. Yep. And then sometimes we have what is called in-kind labor. So like if you do some of the project yourself, we basically call you like the contractor and you get paid. Your cost or your price is $26 an hour, and that could be used as a match for the project. Depending on what kind of project it is, I recommend it a bit. Sometimes it's just like, it's better just for the contractor to do it. If you're doing a simple shoreline restoration when you're just planting, a lot of times, the neighbors come over, have a cooler full of beer, have a grill out, and everybody plants the buffer, and you can use all that time towards your match.
Can you provide anything like the shoreline buffer or?
Yeah.
We're on a hill.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we've got probably, I don't know, what would you say, 3 feet from water?
Yeah.
I mean, it's washed away,
Mhm.
so I mean, we're dealing with a couple different issues. at the same
Sure.
time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Whatever it takes to get it done. And so that's a really good point too. So when we applied for this grant, the funding's being used, for these water quality projects, but they're also to be used. We want to get as many done as we can. So sometimes, like I've had on other lakes, where someone will come to me and be like, "Hey, look at my hillside, it's eroding," and I'll go there and be like, "That's going to be like $50,000." And in that kind of a situation, we would have to be like, maybe down the line we can help with something, or maybe we provide 10% of your project cost or whatever, but it's with only $32,000, that's not a ton of money. We want to do as much shoreline as possible. So just to keep in mind, if you have like a really expensive restoration, this might not be the time to use the money, or like I said, we could figure something out where we can use a portion of it.
Sometimes no project is too small or too big and I don't know what too big is, certainly $50, $100, $200,000. But
Oh,
you're
yeah.
willing to negotiate your involvement with the do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
I don't have a big project in mind.
No. So the question was, no project's too small, no project's too big, and that's correct. It just, when prices get really expensive, we have to make sure we still have money left over for other things. So if the project is $30,000 and the landowner's still gonna do it, and we might say, "Hey, well, we don't have $30,000, but we have $4,000, or we have $6,000 that will help you out with if you incorporate these type of bioengineering plants, habitat, and so forth." That's another, just thought of something. So riprap. There's a lot of rock riprap around Spec Lake. We don't cost share to do rock. The reason we don't do that, we're Soil and Water Conservation District. Our goal is to really have that wildlife habitat aspect. Also, the rock doesn't act as any like a filtering. It doesn't have a filtering component, so when the runoff comes off the land, what we want to do is capture that. That rock just goes right through, right? There's no capturing nutrient, no stopping that phosphorus. So, unfortunately, we don't cost share for that riprap, but that doesn't mean like if you guys were like, hey, I'm gonna put rock here. And I say, well, how about we pay for that 10-foot buffer behind it? You know, that's something we can do.
Don't they? Not make a mistake. I want, anytime you put the rock, you know, filter padding with it.
Behind it?
Everybody doesn't do that.
Oh, no. So I
But
see.
that doesn't do any good.
Right, for filtering stuff that's coming off the land. So what you're talking about is putting down like a geotextile, like a thick black blanket, you know, they wrap the shore. So it's definitely stabilizing your shoreline at the water's edge. So it's preventing your shoreline from washing away from the waves. But what it's not doing, it's not capturing that nutrient that's coming off from the watershed. So from the lakes, your lawn, whatever. And that nutrient is what's carrying that organic phosphorus that in time degrades your lake. So, I mean, I understand it's just kind of a rule soil and waters have. Does anybody out in Zoom land have any questions?
So if you,
Right.
Todd, can you hear me? Yeah. So if we have the riprap or the rock already,
Oh, say that again, Greg.
if we have rock already, can we do a project to have the 10-foot buffer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then
Um,
I guess I got one other question, because this is probably, there's only a limited effect on, but mine. So we have a concrete spillway and steps that go all the way from the top of our hill all the way down to the lake.
Yes.
If we wanted to pull that out completely, is that something that could be done?
Mute that. Can you mute yours? Yes, Greg, let's talk. You and
Yep,
the other people
fine.
that have those spillways are top of the list to talk to. I have a lot of ideas for you guys. So I think I have your email. I will contact you tomorrow and we can figure stuff out. Yes, you can take that away.
Yep.
You know, that is an awesome spot for some type of basin at the top to capture that rainwater before it goes down the spillway. But Greg, that's I'm glad you're here, because you're definitely one of the people I wanted to talk to.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Yes. Any other questions? Email me. I have your email up there, and I have your email if you didn't think of anything today. Cell phones on there, office. Yeah. If you call my cell, I might be wrangling around 2-year-olds and 1-year-olds, changing poopy diapers. So I don't know how I'll be listening that much. So during the day is probably the best time to call. Yeah.
I got a question. I was just thinking, I have some areas where water is running off.
Yeah.
Down my lawn and my place. But
Yeah.
what do you do for that? I mean,
Yes.
it's not that steep,
Mhm.
but it's just, I can see where it's still in the grass. and
Sure.
It finds its way down to the lake. And it kind of spots like that.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. Is that something that covers?
Yeah. So that's in those situations, we try to find where that water's coming from and try to capture it as far up as possible. Or, you know, because once it starts getting speed, that's when you start getting those gullies. So a lot of times basins work well up where we know where the water is coming from. Other remedies could be, they call them like filter strips or grass waterways. So where that gully is you take those native plants and you kind of make a garden where that gully is. And so that remedies because your lawn grass, as high as you see that on the top, like that's where your roots go. So most turf grass have like an inch of rooting. And that's why when you're mowing up to the edge, you get that, or up to the edge of the lake, it doesn't take much for your shoreline to end up in the middle. Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, there's something we could do about the water. Comes off all around my property. Runs down. So-
sure. Yeah, and I don't know if just have me come out, because even if you don't want to do a project, there's other like rain barrels, like really small projects that you can just do that. So rain barrels were like a big barrel at the end of your downspouts on the or no mow. Like I just tell people, don't mow your shoreline, and that helps. Cheap and less work.
Yeah, I'll let you come out, but.
Yeah.
once in a while we fall.
Oh yes, I do not want to come out right now. No. It's snow. Cool.
Or at least get on a list and prioritize, find and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So in terms of project start, man, I'm thinking as soon as possible. So once that snow melts, I'm gonna come out, and then we'll start getting contractors and designs and projects on the ground.
How much is the hillside?
Ooh, so I've not done one.
So we should start.
Yeah, right. So the costs that'll go into it are those soil wraps that go along perpendicular to the shore, and then those native plugs. So it's about $1 a plug. So when I say plug, like they're already grown plants, it's not seeds. We'll do some seed, but then we also like to take already grown plants. So you have a root system, and they start off a lot better. You plant those like every 2 feet. So I don't know like how big the shoreline is that you guys have, or like how much you want to do.
I think we've got 90.
Okay.
It's all-
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, yeah, it's,
Well, I can tell you.
yeah, awesome, cool. I'll give you, I mean, we'll give you a better idea when I come out and take a look and see what's going on.
You could make it money. You could start selling shampoo.
Oh yeah, the
Have people in.
soil and water shampoo, yeah, perfect. Yeah, sure.
There you go.
What, did someone just jump on?
Good evening, Mr. Zachary. We'll be closing in 6 minutes.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds like I'm getting kicked out of the library. But if anybody has questions, there's my contact
Maybe just give me a
information.
call in the spring when you can see the ground.
Yeah, actually, give me an email with your address on there of the lake so that I can do like some desktop stuff before I go out on site. So I kind of have an idea what's going on, and your phone number so we can talk back and forth. Sound like a plan?
We'll send you a picture.
Oh yeah, you guys are never. Yeah, just show me where.
No. No.
We can we'll just talk over the phone, and well, just say like left to this tree, right to that tree. Okay, well, thank you everybody, I appreciate it. Hope to talk to you, and have a good night.